Welcome back to Life's Challenge. My name is Avital, and this week's Parshat is Parshat Tavo. And Parshat Tavo, a lot of the focus is on the blessings and the curses that will befall the Jewish people if they choose to follow the commandments or if they choose not to follow the commandments. But what I actually want to focus on today is the very first section of this week's Parsha. The Parsha opens up by saying that when the Jewish people come to the land of Israel, that they're going to have to take the very first of their fruits, the first fruits that grow from the ground, and they're going to have to bring it to the temple, to the Kohanim, and the Kohanim will take it and put it on the altar and give it as an offering to God. And after that, I'm going to read it directly from the Chumash. After that, the Torah tells us that the person who brought this offering, the person who's bringing the first fruits, should call out and say before Hashem your God, an Aramean, so a person from Aram, tried to destroy my forefather. He descended to Egypt and sojourned there, few in number, and there he became a nation, great, strong, and numerous. The Egyptians mistreated us and afflicted us and placed hard work upon us. Then we cried out to Hashem, the God of our forefathers, and Hashem heard our voice and saw our affliction, our travail, and our oppression. Hashem took us out of Egypt with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm, with great awesomeness and with signs and with wonders. He brought us to this place, and Hashem gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now, behold, I have brought the first fruits of the ground that you have given me, O Hashem, and you shall lay it before Hashem your God, and you shall prostrate yourself before Hashem your God. So that's really interesting. Basically, this kind of summarizes the Jewish people's journey thus far. The Jews were living in Canaan, and they were being persecuted, and there was famine, and so they went to Egypt, and there they were enslaved, and they were oppressed. And then God came in with this strong hand and outstretched arm, and he took them out of Egypt and out of their oppression and brought them through the desert and brought them to the land of Israel and gave them this land. And now here is their fruit. They've come to the point of now settling enough to where they've been able to grow their own produce. And what are they doing with it? They're giving it back as an offering to God. The very first produce, and saying, God, I recognize that this came from you, that this is our backstory and our history, all that we came through to get to this fruit, to get to this new life in our own land. And that's a really beautiful thing. And the next lesson we learn right after that is about tithes. So tithes were what the Jewish people, if they had land, produce, whatever it happened to be, they needed to give a certain portion to others. They needed to be charitable with a certain portion of the produce that they created. So here's what it says. When you have finished tithing every tithe of your produce in the third year, the year of the tithe, you shall give it to the Levite, the proselyte, which is the convert, to the orphan and to the widow, and they shall eat in your cities and be satisfied. So again, the first story is the very first fruit. And now we're saying after 3 years, you have to give some of your produce back to those who need the support. The person who converted is maybe at a disadvantage because they don't have as much knowledge, they don't have as much support, family network as the people who were born Jewish. The widow, the stranger, and the orphan, they also, they don't have support. They don't have people who can go and do that for them. And the Levim, the Levites, they were the ones who were working in the temple. They were either, Levites, Kohanim, but that family was serving the Jewish people. They weren't out working. They weren't working the fields like the rest of the tribes were able to. And so they needed somebody to support them with food and with produce. And so it's kind of a full circle moment, because what we're seeing is first the Jews were persecuted and they didn't have their own land and they didn't have produce. And that first produce is a thanking God. God, I recognize that this came from you. And because we recognize that that came from God, what do we do after 3 years? We give back. We pay it forward. We say there's been so much goodness given to us that now we have this abundance. We have this crop of our own. And what are we going to do with this gift that came from God? We're going to give it to other people who are in need. We're going to, again, pay it forward. And bringing it back to our own lives. we also have an abundance of blessings. And we can also be like the Jew who's going back and recognizing all the different points it took along the journey to get to this place of beauty, of freedom, of newness. And once we're more established in that, it's sort of our obligation, but certainly a beautiful thing to be able to give that gift to other people. A modern example of this might be something as simple as letting somebody shadow you at work. We all were in a position at a time in our lives where we needed to get an internship, or we needed to shadow somebody in our field, or we wanted to know if that's the field we wanted to be in, so we wanted to watch somebody else work or get real world experience. We've been there. And then when we get to the place where we're established in our own jobs and our own careers, it's a gift. It's that paying it forward to do that for the next generation, to allow students and younger people than us to walk in our footsteps for the day, to see what it's like to be in our job. That's just one example, but there are many, many examples of paying it forward. There have been movies made about the concept, but I think it's really a lesson that kind of stems from this week's Parsha and something that is really important and meaningful to focus on. So I wish you all a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.